Hey guys, Andy's Aquarium. Just wanted to do a quick video here on filter options. First, we're gonna go with the floating filter. Um, this unit actually goes into your tank. So this hangs on in the back corner on the inside, and then you've got a little suction cup that sticks onto the glass. On the bottom, you've got your intake. That's where the water goes in, where you've got your motor, and it goes through the filter. And from there, it flows over here. So once the water gets sucked in, it goes through your mechanical filtration, which is basically a sponge that sticks in there. And in addition to that sponge, we've got here a bio bag, which is your cartridge, and it's got carbon inside with kind of a webbing material. So that goes in front like so, and that's basically your floating filter. It's one of the cheaper options. You know, I am not a big fan of it just because, you know, it takes up a lot of space in the tank. This is rated for a 10 gallon. That's a 10 gallon right there. As you can see, you know, that would take up some room in the back corner of your tank. Depending on what you're keeping and how aesthetically pleasing you want your tank to look, this is probably your cheapest option, along with a sponge filter, which is another option. I don't have one here, but it's basically a sponge that's connected to an air hose and it goes into your tank. Moving on, this is your second option. If you want to get some decent filtration, I would say go with a hang-on back. This unit here I picked up on a Boxing Day sale. It's made by Topfin, which is basically PetSmart. This is rated for a 40 to 75 gallon aquarium. And as you can see there, it tells you about the flow rate. It's 300 gallons per hour. So with this unit, this basically hangs on the back of your tank also, but it's on the outside. So it's not taking up any room inside of your tank. It's also, you know, kind of invisible. You know, you don't really see it as much. All you see is the intake on the actual unit. So if I can get this out of the box, well, I'm not gonna fight with this this guy here, but I'll just show you on this 10 gallon. This is a hang-on back filter. This is also a Topfin. This is rated for a 10 gallon. And the nice thing about this is you can adjust your flow rate, which is important depending on what kind of fishes you're keeping. So yeah, so that's nice because you know, you don't want fast currents if you've got a betta, which is what I've got in this tank with some, you know, tetras, right? So moving right along, nice option about this, if we pop off the lid, it's got a little warning unit here, and you can see it's blue right now, that little dot there in the middle. That means everything's okay. You don't need to change your cartridge. But once it starts to get blocked up, there's a little float underneath, and you know, the water will bring that up, and then you see a red dot right there, which basically means it's time to change your cartridge. So looking into the filter, as you can see, this is your intake right here. It's got a spout that goes down into the tank, and you can see that spout right there if my betta moves, and the spout is just over there in the corner. And I've got a sponge that's on the bottom of the intake, and that acts as a mechanical filtration. And then your water leads up into here, goes through the propeller, and then it comes into this reservoir in the back, goes through your cartridge, which has like that, which has the carbon inside, and it's got this webbing material. And they don't have a sponge, but they have this little blue perforated plastic here, and that kind of works as your mechanical filtration, and then you can see the water going back into the tank. You could put a sponge in these, it's all optional, but that's your hang-on back filter kind of in a nutshell. And again, it hangs on the back, so that's why it's a hang-on back. So it does not take up any room in your tank other than obviously the intake. But you know, it's more aesthetically pleasing, I would say, than having something like you know, a floating filter or a sponge filter. So moving right along, we're gonna get this big guy out of the way. This is probably the best option, especially if you're gonna go with fishes like cichlids, or you're gonna go with goldfishes who are, you know, much messier than things like tetras and you know, any sort of smaller species. So with the canister, that's basically the unit right there. It's got a intake and, you know, an output. And inside this unit is where we have all the filtration. So if we take a look at the back here, it basically shows you you've got 3 compartments. This is where you have your foam or your sponge, whatever you like to call it, and that does all your mechanical. Over here we've got 2 smaller compartments, and you can put your biomedia in one, like your Biomax right here. So you can stick that into either one of these, and then in the second compartment you can put your carbon or you know, your ammonia remover, whatever sort of water cleanser you want in there. So a lot of people, they use carbon to kind of clean the water, and as you can see, there's like numerous things that you can stick in that second compartment, depending on what you're keeping. But again, like if you want, you can just put more Biomax in there, but the carbon's nice just to keep the clarity of the water. Some people don't believe in it, but again, that's a topic for next day. Now, along with this actual canister unit, you get all of these nifty pieces, the 2 compartments we were talking about, and then you get this section here where your sponge or your foam goes into. You get the hoses with it, and that's your intake that goes into the tank. These pieces hook on to the back, so it's all nice and neat. Your hoses connect to that. And then that's your outflow valve, where the water, after it's filtered, it flows back into the tank. This is where it gets sucked in into this spout right here. So let's open this up and have a look. This guy here is 107, Fuval 107, and this is rated for a 10 to 30 gallon. And as you can see, there is a big difference in the flow rate. This is 550 liters an hour versus that hang-on back, which was, I believe, something like 300 liters an hour. So with all the added filtration in the actual canister, with the flow rate, you know, how do you beat that, right? So it's a much better option. So we're gonna pop this open and have a look inside. So this is basically your canister unit right here. You know, it opens up. This is your let's see here, that's your intake, and this is your output where the water flows out. You've got a primer, so once you set it up for the first time, or you're doing any sort of maintenance and you need to start the filter back up, this helps to prime your hoses. So I'll get the water up in there, so you know, the filter can start flowing. So this is the actual unit, and here you can see we've got all of those pieces I was talking about earlier. So these 2 pieces kind of clip on to the top of the filter, so you've got your intake and your output. where the hose is attached to, and then it goes up and it connects to these what do we call these, kind of like a hook device that goes onto the back of the tank, so it's nice and neat. That's your intake spout that goes into the tank where the water gets sucked in, and this is your output valve where the water gets released back into the tank. So pretty neat. You get all of these pieces with the canister, so you know it's aesthetically pleasing. And also, you know, obviously your hose. So it does come with you know, 8.5 feet of hose, and you know, you cut and adjust accordingly to your tank. Probably would like some more a bit more hose with that, but you know, you kind of work with what you get. So that's the canister in a nutshell. There are a few other filters, like I've mentioned before. There is a sponge filter. It's probably one of the cheapest options. It's a sponge that goes in the tank. You connect a hose to it, and you know, it does filtration that way. A lot of smaller stores have a system like that. The smaller fish stores, or you know, fish keepers who are on a budget, you know, it works. It's not the nicest thing to look at, but it works. And then you've got, for smaller tanks, you have stuff like under gravel filter. So it's basically a unit that goes underneath the gravel. You put it over, and it does the same thing. The air hose is connected, and it goes under. So anyways, guys, I hope this has been helpful to you guys in some way. If you're thinking of upgrading or you're thinking of filter options, I would definitely weigh my options. If you're going for a smaller tank and you're on a budget, I would say go with a hang-on back. You can even go with a sponge or a floating filter. If you're getting into larger tanks, a canister is probably the best bet. But you know, if you can't afford a canister, they are pricey. Then you know, you can also stick to a hang-on back filter like this, which is, you know, rated for larger tanks. But again, it's all based on preference, and it's based on what you want to keep. So know your species, know what kind of filtration you need, and then kind of, you know, work with your budget and see what's your best option. If you can't afford one of this, you can probably get two hang-on backs, and it will get close to the canister filter. And there's always a floating filter too for smaller tanks, if you don't mind something obstructing some space in there. Then, you know, by all means, go with a floating filter. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Do like and subscribe, and have yourself a wonderful day.